Schumacher become world champion. And look, he knows it. He is absolutely beside himself with joy.
It's been 21 long, agonising years since Ferrari celebrated a Formula One Drivers' World Championship. But this year, Michael Schumacher's brilliant performances, along with the rest of the team, has finally put a stop to the drought.
Maranello, home of the world-famous prancing horse team, is still celebrating along with the rest of Italy. And that's why we're here, to look back on another fabulous season of Formula One on ITV.
For the next hour, we look back at the incredible duel between Mika Häkkinen and Michael Schumacher for the 2000 title. Schumacher shares his delights at a third World Championship after a 5-year struggle, as Italy breathes a massive sigh of relief after 21 barren years without a Formula One driver's crown. Plus, we look at how the 2000 season went for the rest of the drivers. For David Coulthard and Rubens Barrichello, some bittersweet memories. But for Jenson Button, a stunning debut year. We catch up with Jenson and reflect on a dream start in Formula One. And a once-in-a-lifetime Formula One ride for some very lucky people.
So, welcome to the programme. Maranello oozes charisma, for this was where the legendary Enzo Ferrari recruited his superstar drivers Alberto Ascari, Gilles Villeneuve, Niki Lauda, Alain Prost and many others. And now Michael Schumacher joins the Immortals as a Ferrari world champion. But it wasn't an easy ride, for this year's battle for the title was a classic between Schumacher and Mika Häkkinen. Here's James Allen.
This was the most intense championship fight since the days of Senna and Prost a decade ago. Mika Häkkinen and Michael Schumacher both at the height of their powers as drivers, pushing themselves and their cars to the absolute limit. Nowhere was this more clearly demonstrated than in the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka, where the pair were in a league of their own. Schumacher took the race and with it the title from Häkkinen, while the third place man, David Coulthard, trailed in over a minute behind. At the start of the year, it looked as though Schumacher would have the championship wrapped up long before Japan, as he dominated the first 3 races. This was the first time in his career that Ferrari had given him a winning car from the outset, and he won in Australia, Brazil and Imola.
And Michael Schumacher wins the San Marino Grand Prix. What a sensational race this has been.
Being here in Italy, in our home country, what do you want more? It's nice, but it's not over.
Häkkinen, in contrast, seemed a broken man after retiring from the first 2 races with engine failure. Victory in Spain gave him something to smile about, but by May it was clear he was exhausted and despondent. David Coulthard filled the gap, winning the British Grand Prix in fine style and showing it was no fluke by taking the spoils at Monaco, after Schumacher's Ferrari pulled out with a broken suspension.
Schumacher's in trouble! Schumacher's in trouble! Front wheel off the ground!
Michael shrugged off his Monaco misfortune with a win in Canada to open up a 22-point lead at the halfway stage, but bad luck lurked around the corner. At the French Grand Prix, the Ferrari wore out its rear tyres faster than the McLarens, which left Schumacher vulnerable to Coulthard's approaches. The Scot proved irresistible and went on to win his 3rd race of the season. McLaren's joy was doubled when the Ferrari pulled off the track into retirement number 2. A fortnight later, Schumacher's Austrian Grand Prix lasted just a few hundred metres. But Häkkinen was on fire at the A1 ring, taking a vital win ahead of Coulthard. After a couple of months in the doldrums, the Finn was back to his very best.
I think now everything really starts. Now we start really fighting.
24 laps into the German Grand Prix, Schumacher believed his championship lead was gone. Once again, he'd been involved in a first corner accident, but then this happened.
We've got a strange guy walking down the side of the racetrack in a raincoat. And what on earth is he doing?
A disaffected ex-Mercedes employee achieved his goal of ruining McLaren's race. Ferrari's Rubens Barrichello snatched an emotional victory. Up to this stage, Coulthard had kept ahead of Häkkinen in the points race, but in Hungary, the world champion scorched away at the start and went on to win the race comfortably to head the championship table by 2 points. On the podium at Spa, Schumacher's face said it all. What had seemed a sure thing was slipping away from him, and he seemed powerless to do anything about it. Häkkinen was on top and triumphant after one of the great passing moves of the last 10 years.
Yes, he's done it. A brilliant move there, either side of Zonta.
In the previous 5 races, Schumacher had scored just 12 points to Häkkinen's 42. Monza was the crunch moment of the championship. Schumacher got the pole and converted that into a victory, which brought him back to within 2 points of his rival. But for once, the racing took second place in people's thoughts. The day was marked by tragedy when a fire marshal lost his life in a terrible accident on the opening lap. Schumacher lived out the full American dream at Indianapolis when Häkkinen's Mercedes engine expired after just 25 laps. Having seen it all falling away, the pendulum had now swung back in the German's favour, and he again had the title in his sights. Like many of Ferrari's best victories, Japan was won by a mixture of brilliant driving and inspired tactics. Häkkinen looked good for victory, but Schumacher and Ross Brawn stole it in the pit stops to bring the curtain down on Formula One's longest-running soap opera. After 21 years, Ferrari were champions again.
There was up and downs, like all the teams have up and downs. I think the Ferrari team got it more right than we did this year, so they won it.
Michael, first of all, you've had the adulation of Italy and I'm sure Germany. Let me add that of the English-speaking world in terms of congratulating you on a fantastic achievement.
Thank you.
Now, can we go back 5 years? Benetton in 1995, you're world champion for the second time. You could have gone on, I'm sure, with Benetton and been world champion for a third time. What was going through your mind at that time? Why did you move?
It's probably part of my whole career in karting and in racing. I've remembered in karting I was never in a kind of factory team supplied by the factory directly. We were in a rather small German team with a very important man behind, Mr. Neubert at the time, and we were able to win races. And the satisfaction of winning in this environment a European Championship, which I did in '86, was great. Because being a small team and then achieving such a goal is outstanding. It's worth more than simply being in the best team and then winning. And I was looking for this kind of challenge. And Ferrari gave the best opportunity, obviously, for that, because we all know how long it's has been behind.
Now, you've had to keep a lot of it bottled up, Michael, but when you won in Japan the rundown lap, we saw this great outpouring of emotion. What does it mean to you now? Do you wake up in the morning and say, hey, I'm 3 times world champion? Look at yourself in the mirror?
No, not at all. No, it's different. You have the moments of feeling where it comes to you, where you're saying, great. You feel like a winner with total satisfaction. And then it goes and you be together with your wife and you just come back to a kind of normal life.
Well done. You've joined the immortals. What now?
You see, these emotions we have gone through in good and bad ways this year, I think they make life worth, and in our opportunity and situation, worth much more than maybe a normal life, because the peaks are much higher or much lower. I'm only 31, and I feel there is more of these emotions I can go through, and I want to go through. I want to experience. I love racing. I mean, that's my blood, and that's what I have been doing for now 27 years. And I still love it. I still want to do it. I don't want to retire. It's probably like you.
Good luck to you. You've done a fantastic job. Thank you, Michael.
Mary.
So, a fantastic achievement by Michael Schumacher and the team. He's now spoken about in the same breath as the all-time greats. But how good is he? Might we be witnessing the best of all time? Once again, here's James.
3 times a world champion, second in the all-time winners list with 44 victories, the dominant driver of the past 7 seasons. Just how good is Michael Schumacher?
I think that Michael is in a class of his own. I do agree that others are closing up, but he's still, I think, head and shoulders above them, and that is a remarkable achievement.
Schumacher's Ferrari years have seen him touch the highest highs and the depths of despair. It's been agony for the German driver, sometimes literally. Last year he looked on course for the title, but then broke his leg in a savage accident at Silverstone. In 1998 he started the season with a vastly inferior car to his rival Mika Hakkinen, and despite a spirited fight back, Schumacher lost the title when he stalled on the grid in the final race. Another bad mistake in a high-pressure finale had gifted the 97 title to Jacques Villeneuve. But this year, for the first time, Ferrari gave Schumacher a car which was on the pace and reliable from the outset. He got his foot in the door with 3 wins at the start of the season, and despite some mid-season wobbles, Michael held his nerve to win his first title for 5 years. Schumacher has several key qualities. He has an incredible self-belief. He moves through the paddock radiating confidence, making his less self-assured rivals feel beaten before they've even started. He's also incredibly consistent. Many drivers can pull out one special lap, but very few can sustain that pace through a 90-minute Grand Prix. Schumacher can, and in order to beat him, Hakkinen has had to learn to do the same. Then there's his refusal to give up. As he showed at Suzuka, he can be behind, but will always push to the limit in the certain knowledge that the race isn't over until the checkered flag. This year, we also saw the human side of Michael Schumacher. The tears at Monza, prompted by memories of Ayrton Senna, whose 41 wins he had just equalled. And at that final race, he showed he could let his hair down. Literally.
We are a red team, and everything is red. I mean, my heart is red, my overall is red, so my hair's become red.
Schumacher is now at the height of his powers, and Ferrari have found a winning formula. How much more can we expect to see in the coming years from this controversial racing genius?
Well, I must say I feel a bit goose-pimply at the moment because Martin and I are in the great Enzo Ferrari's study, where he watched the races on television and made so many of his team decisions. He would have been delighted this year. Michael Schumacher, top man, and the team.
He would have been a very happy bunny, wouldn't he? I mean, great performance, both championships in the bag. 3 of the last 4 World Championships available have gone to Ferrari. Michael started the season so well, of course, winning the first couple of races. I think he was over 30 points ahead at one stage. And had it not been for those sort of first corner incidents and a couple of engine failures, could have had it wrapped up very early.
Michael has this blinding ability to go 100% right from the very start. But I think on a lap-for-lap basis, Mika, very often the quicker man.
I think in qualifying, Hakkinen's the better driver. He makes less mistakes. Michael can get a bit scruffy on his 3rd or 4th lap when he seems to be putting himself under a lot of pressure. Mika can really turn it on when he has to. And we saw that overtaking manoeuvre in Spa to show that Hakkinen is not scared of Michael. But overall, you'd have to say, over a complete race distance and over a series of races, Michael is consistently faster in my view.
It takes a lot to get a few thousand Italians out of bed on a cold, rainy Sunday morning, but no Ferrari fan would have missed this. The moment when Michael Schumacher exited the Suzuka pit lane ahead of Mika Hakkinen. The scenes in Maranello's town square were repeated across the country as the passionate tifosi celebrated Ferrari's first driver's title for a generation. A week after they had done the double at the Malaysian Grand Prix, Ferrari held a celebration at their Mugello track in Tuscany. The drivers joined team and fans for a very special kind of victory parade. They say that when you drive for Ferrari, you drive for Italy. So when you win for Ferrari, you share that winning feeling with a whole nation.
Jean, you and a lot of other people have brought the glory days back to Ferrari. But why you? Who chose you? You're a Frenchman, you have a rally background. Who spotted your talents?
Well, I mean, my first meeting was with President Luca Di Montezemolo, who probably heard my name. I I know that Bernie Eccleston suggested my name as well. So, I mean, the first person I really met in August '92 was Luca di Montezemolo.
It's a Frenchman at the top, it's an Englishman on the technical side, it's a South African on the aerodynamic side, it's a German driver, an Irish driver, a Brazilian driver. Has there been any friction in Italy because of that?
You know, Ferrari is, as you said, was Italian team, but then, you know, Formula One is international. So what Ferrari and what Italy wanted is to have a winning team, and obviously it would be better to have only Italian inside of one Italian company, but nowadays it doesn't exist anymore.
Now, you must be a mega hero in Italy now, but in the past things weren't always so good. When things weren't going so good, did you get people throwing stones through your windows or anything like that?
I mean, you know, really honestly, I don't care so much about what I am outside. I do care very much what I'm inside, because I spend my life inside. And obviously, it's easier to go in the restaurant or to go to the airport after a win, rather than after you have been retiring 4 times in a row by not being competitive. So my life is easier at the moment.
There are people in England, of course, saying, oh, Ferrari is an Italian team. Now that they've won, they'll all go out and have a long lunch and drink a lot of wine, and it won't be the same in 2001.
But I can guarantee that it's not the case. Since I mean, we were starting already to work on next year car, next year engine, obviously before the end of the 2000 championship, and we are 100% focused on the future, because I mean, as long as you are in this game, you want to be good, you want to win.
We're joined by Ross Brawn, the technical director of the Ferrari team. Ross, thanks for talking to us today. For the benefit of the viewers new to Formula One, what is your day-to-day role at Ferrari?
Well, I'm responsible for the engineering and the racing, engineering of the chassis and the racing of the whole team. So this time of year, we're building a new car, getting prepared for the new season. So it's largely a factory-based job. But once the season starts, then I attend all the Grand Prix and look after the engineering at the racetrack.
You're famous for thinking on your feet before and during the race regarding strategy. How crucial is Michael Schumacher's speed to that success?
It's vital. I mean, Michael makes strategies work that you can't work with other drivers. There's periods of the race when you can go for something knowing that he's got a chance of doing it, and you simply wouldn't do it with other drivers. So, I mean, the strategy is often overplayed. There are a few races where I must say I'm proud of that we managed to change the turn of events. Often with Michael, it's a question of giving him a strategy where he shouldn't lose the race, making sure he has a good chance and he does the rest. But he's pretty key to it. He's an essential ingredient, for sure.
Isn't it kind of mission accomplished here for you now, though?
Well, in one sense. I mean, I must say I came to Ferrari with the ambition to win a world championship with Ferrari, because we hadn't done it for so long, and I'd been fortunate to win championships with Benetton, so I'd achieved championships. It seemed the ultimate to win it with Ferrari. But I must say, the passion to do it again next year, the enthusiasm to do it next year is just as strong. So we've done it once, but we want to do it again.
Talking of next year, do you feel more or less pressure as double world champions?
It's a very good question. I mean, I'm not sure yet. Until we start getting racing, we'll see what develops. But I think it could be more pressure. I mean, I think we've achieved what hadn't been done for 21 years. But there it is, we've done it, and everyone's going to expect us to do it again. And it'd be interesting to see how the Italian media react, if we're doing well or not doing so well. I'm not sure which route they're going to go, but I think internally our own personal pressure, because all of the pressure you create is your own ambition, your own commitments. I think it's going to be just as strong next year, and we're working very hard this winter to do a very good car and to strengthen the organisation. We're looking at how we can improve the team as well.
Thanks for your insight into the world of Ferrari, Ross.
Thank you, Martin.
That's it for a while, but there's plenty more to come, including some time with new British sensation Jenson Button and a massive Formula One treat for some very privileged passengers.
Welcome back to our review of the Formula One 2000 season. Mid-year, David Coulthard was a World Championship contender, but along with Rubens Barrichello, had mixed fortunes. For both of them, it was a remarkable character-building year.
It was a year to remember and also one to forget for David Coulthard, a season where he would reach the highs of race wins and a World Championship challenge and the lows of on-track growls and off-track tragedies. It started badly, a breakdown and a disqualification left him with no points as the European races began. But significantly, the first McLaren to win a race this year was the one with the Scottish flag on the side, not the finish. David recorded a memorable victory at the British Grand Prix and looked like moving out of Häkkinen's shadow at last. But 1 week later, his plane crashed at Lyon Airport. Many questioned how he could race just days later, but he did, and despite 3 broken ribs, brought his car home to a heroic second place.
Fabulous move by David Coulthard.
Coulthard seemed determined to get the most from life and racing after the tragedy. He held tough to win in Monaco and squared up to Schumacher's aggressive tactics in Magny-Cours with typical Highland spirit. Win number 3 and people were starting to talk about a title run. Those 3 wins coincided with his teammates' slump in form, but Häkkinen's renaissance had an equal and opposite effect on David. Faced with Mika dominant again, DC's championship challenge withered. His performances mid-season lacked their earlier sparkle, and by the Belgian Grand Prix, the Scot had slipped out of the championship fight.
I've had my best year in Formula One in terms of the amount of wins and generally my performance qualifying and in racing. I can feel positive that I have definitely improved.
Rubens Barrichello had a memorable year. His first season with Ferrari started well with a second place in Australia.
As Barrichello is going for Häkkinen, and he's through!
And this gritty performance in Brazil proved him to be an able number 2 to Michael Schumacher. He even outshone his teammate in rainy conditions. Rubens clinched pole position at Silverstone and would have won in Canada had Ferrari team tactics allowed. But his finest moment came in another wet race at Hockenheim. A nightmare qualifying session had left Rubens 18th on the grid, but he stormed through the field and stayed out on slicks as the rain fell. After 124 races, Barrichello finally claimed his first ever victory.
You are watching a sensational drive being completed, and he's done it!
It was a rush of emotion, not just for the Brazilian, but also for his Ferrari team leader. His sheer joy and relief on the podium was shared by everybody in the sport. Barrichello recorded 9 podium places from 13 finishes this year and played a key part in securing both World Championships for his Ferrari team.
Champagne and tears aplenty then, but at the final hurdle, Coulthard and Barrichello confined to a supporting role. They both say they'll be much stronger next year. So a look to the rest of the point scorers, led by Ralf Schumacher, and an impressive return to Formula One power by BMW in the Williams.
Ralf Schumacher demonstrated the potential of his Williams BMW right from the outset. Third place in Australia was a welcome surprise and an early signal that the team had produced the goods. Indeed, Ralf finished in the points in 4 of his first 6 outings and continued to show a mature, consistent driving style and the outright pace needed to mix it with the top 2 teams. But as the season wore on, mechanical gremlins and a leg injury blunted his challenge, and his performances were starting to be overshadowed by Jenson Button's meteoric rise. Towards the end of the season, though, experience showed, and it became less of a novelty to see Ralf on the podium. In a year when only Ferrari or McLaren won races, Schumacher and Williams were undoubtedly best of the rest. Giancarlo Fisichella's season was one of peaks and troughs. Podiums in Brazil, Monaco and Canada were clear reminders of the Italian's potential. But his progress and performance were inconsistent, and by the middle of the year it started going badly wrong. Fisichella had a spell when over the space of 4 races he completed just 39 laps. A series of heavy accidents dealt further blows to his confidence and enthusiasm, and as the season wore on, Giancarlo all but gave up, being out-qualified and outraced by his teammate Alex Wurz. No such criticism could be made of Jacques Villeneuve. More determined than ever to drag BAR up the order, Jacques got off to a great start when he recorded the team's first ever points in Melbourne. His car was much improved in 2000, but it still took the Canadian's talent to produce the goods. He made some brilliant starts, most memorably in Montreal, and converted them to points. His spirited fight with Frentzen in Indianapolis, where he just missed out on a podium finish, served to remind us that Jack is one of the very best in the business.
We were wanting to be able to fight for podiums, and if with luck win, but it turned out that maybe if we're lucky we might get a podium, so we're underneath our expectations.
For Britain, the story of the year has been Jenson Button. He's a remarkable young man. He's barely out of his teens, and he had an incredible debut season. In fact, in my opinion, he is a potential world champion. Here's James.
Of all the new drivers to come into Formula One in recent years, few have made the impact of Jenson Button. Always calm, seemingly unflappable, 20-year-old Button surpassed his team's expectations of him in his debut year, despite having to learn the circuits and ways of Formula One. The Williams BMW was clearly the next best thing to a McLaren or a Ferrari. Jenson outqualified his highly rated teammate Ralf Schumacher at the second race in Brazil and again in round 4 at Silverstone. By the end of the season, he was right on the pace, qualifying a stunning 3rd at Spa and 5th at Suzuka. It was his race performance, though, at Hockenheim which hints at what Button might be capable of in the future. He stalled on the grid and had to start from the back. But in tricky conditions in the closing stages, he was the fastest man on the circuit. Using the same wet tyres as a struggling Mika Hakkinen, he fought his way up to 4th place and confirmed his billing as the find of the year.
A remarkable performance from a man who is going to be dominating Formula One, I would imagine, in a few years' time.
It wasn't all good, though. His qualifying form dipped badly in the second quarter of the season as the strain of learning new circuits got to him. For 7 races in a row, he failed to get into the top 10 on the grid. Sometimes it was the car's fault, sometimes his own. He also had to put up with stories that Williams planned to bring in Juan Pablo Montoya to replace him next year. He'd known this was likely when he signed, but as the year went on, he felt maybe he'd done enough to keep the seat. When it became clear that Williams' mind was set on Montoya, Button lined up a 2-year deal with Benetton. A terrific start then to a Formula One career. We watch his progress with interest.
The pace hasn't really slowed for Jenson Button since the season ended. As well as spending some time with his new team, Benetton, he's been doing some off-track work for Williams. We tracked Jenson down on a visit to the ABN Bank trading floor in London, where he was helping the team raise money for Reuters Aid Fund.
Have you found my dealer present?
Sure.
There you go. I'm not going to do any trades today.
Among the items auctioned was a scale model of this year's Williams, signed by Jenson.
Sold for £2,000. Thank you, Andrew.
Once the commotion had died down, we found a quiet spot to chat about his impressive debut for the team. So much was made before the start of the season about you being too young to cope with all the pressures. And what were the pressures like? Was it what you expected or more?
In certain ways it was more, because I didn't know what to expect on the press side and everything, and training and everything. I didn't really know what to expect, but it was pretty hard at the start of the season. I'd said the wrong things in some ways, and training was hard, definitely, because I never really trained before. I never really enjoyed it, but it's not too bad now, and I enjoy doing it now. So
were those the worst bits?
I think so. Yeah, definitely. Could always say the time away from home, but I've been used to that for quite a few years now. I enjoyed it so much this year, I really did. And now I'm home, I'm like, wow, I've got a month off, but I just get bored so easy. Just can't wait to get back in the car again.
What were the good bits, just the racing?
Yeah, the racing was fantastic. Driving a Formula One car, obviously, to start with, one of the most amazing things. And working with a team like Williams and BMW, Frank, Patrick, Gerhardt and Mario, and the rest of the team have all been amazing.
Are you sad to leave them? I know you're coming back again, but you did build up a really good bond with them, didn't you?
Yeah, definitely. It's always sad to leave a team after just 1 year. But things change, and I think the next 2 years with Flavio and Benetton and Renault are going to be good fun. And then I see these guys back in 2003, so it's a great career I think I've got in front of me. I'm looking forward to it.
From what you've seen back at the factory, okay, you haven't seen next year's car yet, but from what you've seen at the Benetton factory, what are your expectations for next year?
Again, it's a new challenge. The engine's new, so no one knows what's going to happen. It's a big step, obviously, from Renault. And from what I've seen, it's looking good. Also, the car is looking very good with the gas going on the case now. He's working very hard, and I think me and Giancarlo can do a good job. It's just nobody knows before the first race, and again with the tyre war going on now, nobody knows what's going to happen.
I was absolutely shattered at how well he did this year. After all, he's just 20 years old. What impressed me even more, I think, than his driving was his incredible maturity. He's so calm, he's so laid back, he's so matter of fact. I've been worried all season that all the adulation that he was getting was going to go to his head and affect his driving, but not a sign of that.
No, I said at the beginning of the season I thought he'd come too quickly to Formula One. He clearly had an incredible talent, and I felt they were risking it too much by putting him straight into a Formula One car with so little track experience. But, as you said, he had the maturity. Up until half season, I was still pretty sure that that was the right view, and a view shared by many. But then in the second half of the year, particularly at Spa and Suzuka, he really did humble Ralf Schumacher, who is and was so highly rated. And as you said, whenever we spoke to Jensen, whether it was on the grid, in the paddock, away from the racetrack, he seemed to be very calm. Now he's got this pressure. He's now being compared to, is he the next Prost? Is he going to pick up the baton from Michael Schumacher in the very near future? He's got to get from this stage very much to the next, and that'll take some doing too.
Yeah, I have no reason to believe that he won't do that. Now he's got a season's experience behind him. It's going to be more than interesting to see how he goes at Benetton with this magic new Renault engine.
Now for the Jordan team, the year 2000 was enormously disappointing. Only 6th in the Constructors' Championship when they'd been 3rd the previous year. It was equally frustrating for Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Only 11 drivers' points and an incredible 11 retirements. Here's Louise Goodman.
9th in the drivers' table is much worse than Heinz-Harald Frentzen expected this season. Podium finishes in Brazil and Indianapolis were the only celebrations for the Jordan team all year. Endless car failures knocked the team's spirit as well as Frentzen's confidence. This year's British Grand Prix summed it up. A front row grid slot promised much, but it turned into yet another retirement. Things can only improve. Next in the table came Mika Salo. Another indifferent season yielded just 6 points for the Finn and his Sauber outfit. He's now off to drive for the Toyota team, who entered Formula One in 2002. Also with 6 points was Jarno Trulli, who experienced even more bad luck than his teammate Frentzen. The high point of the year was a blistering qualifying lap on the streets of Monaco for 2nd on the grid, proof that Trulli has what it takes. But his talent was underused, as too often the car let him down. On top of that, Jarno had several skirmishes with Jenson Button, rubbing salt into the wounds of a forgettable season.
This season has been probably the worst season I have ever had in my racing career. Never had such a bad season.
The news was much better for Jos Verstappen and the Arrows team. The usual pre-season optimism was for once justified, as the drivers found themselves fighting for points positions. The Dutchman was blindingly quick in a straight line and secured 4th place at the Italian Grand Prix. After the heights of fighting for the championship in 1999, Eddie Irvine came crashing down to earth in 2000. Jaguar was one of the biggest disappointments of the year, crippled by basic technical glitches and a lack of outright pace. The highlight for the Irishman was 4th place in Monaco, but that hid deeper problems. Another point in Malaysia saved complete embarrassment.
We're pretty much, this year, I think, put the finger in a lot of problems, and next year you're gonna see a big turnaround.
Ricardo Zonta was next up, scoring 3 points for BAR, and there could have been more given a bit of luck and a few less accidents. Embarrassingly, a few of those shunts involved his teammate Jacques Villeneuve, spinning him at Hockenheim. Greener pastures beckon as a new test driver for Jordan. Pedro de la Rosa fared better in the second arrows with 2 points both from the 2 German races. He showed much more promise this season, helped by a better performing car, and he'll stay with the team for next season. Which is more than can be said for our final scorer, Alex Wurz, who netted just 2 points for 5th place at Monza. 2 years ago, the Austrian was tipped to be a future world champion, but he's lost his way with Benetton. A year testing for McLaren should restore some confidence.
That leaves 7 drivers who failed to score any points at all. For varying reasons, they'd like to forget this season altogether, starting with Jean Alesi and the Prost team, who amazingly were bottom of the class of 2000.
Winners of the wooden spoon this year were Prost Peugeot, with Jean Alesi suffering the worst year of his racing career, failing to score a single point. The only bright spot for Jean was in Belgium, where a good strategy put him into 4th place before the car let him down again. Indeed, Alesi and his teammate Nick Heidfeld racked up 23 retirements between them, even helping each other out of a race and back to the motorhome in time for tea. Internal power struggles dogged the team all year, but they have a new Ferrari power plant and new personnel for 2001, which should help. Pedro Diniz had neither the car nor the performance to score any points and has recently retired from driving. He'll take up a management role at Prost next season. Minardi were also pointless after 17 races, but face an even tighter struggle for survival this winter. They have no sponsor, no drivers and no engine, and will need a helping hand from the powers that be if they are to race at all in 2001. They can't rely on marshal power. Johnny Herbert's last year in Formula One was also without reward. An unreliable car and the bad luck that's haunted his career combined to deliver a best finish of 7th, tantalisingly just out of the points. This nasty accident in Malaysia was a sad way to end a popular career that yielded 3 Grand Prix victories.
My goal of being a world champion is not there anymore, and if that goal is not there anymore, then there's no use just driving around in circles just for the sake of being in Formula One, because that's not what I want to do.
You know, I have felt sorry for Johnny Herbert ever since his victorious season in '87 in the Formula 3 British Championship, because he had that terrible crash, Formula 3000 at Brands Hatch in '88, completely shattered his ankles, and frankly he's never been the same since. He's been terrific. I mean, he had that 4th place in his first race for Benetton, and he's driven some wonderful races, including 3 wins, of course. But Johnny's never been the same Johnny, and he's never been as good as he could have been.
No, I don't think we saw the best of Johnny Herbert for sure. I mean, he struggles to walk sometimes, and it must impact on his driving ability, as your feet obviously play a major part in controlling the Formula 1 car.
You know, we had that party for him in Malaysia, and it was an indication of the affection, the genuine love that the whole paddock's got for him, that there were about 300 people there in the Jaguar Paddock Club area, and they had turned out simply because it was Johnny. I can't imagine many other drivers they would have done that for.
Well, because he's a genuine, straightforward chap, really. There's no sides to Johnny, and, you know, as you say, I think that was an endorsement of exactly that.
I think we had an absolutely cracking season in so many different ways. All sorts of images come to the top of my mind. I mean, we saw the 2 masters of their craft battling for supremacy the whole season. I think McLaren could even argue in a way that they lost the championship because of that deranged chap who goes wandering across the circuit at Hockenheim as a protest.
Yes, that was extraordinary, wasn't it? And if he wanted to spoil McLaren and Mercedes-Benz day, and possibly year, he chose the right lap, let alone the right race, and it was incredible because it forced the McLarens into the pits early. They were line astern, it was chaos, and it really did hurt them a lot that day.
And a great season for Germany in many ways, not just Schumacher and Mercedes-Benz with McLaren, but BMW came back for the first year since '83 when they won the championship with Piquet, and I think they did an absolutely superlative job. Nobody expected them to do particularly well, even Frank Williams, and they got a podium. They finished 3rd in the Constructors' Championship.
Welcome to Silverstone for a very special midwinter F1 day out. 2 lucky winners of our competition and some surprise guests are about to experience Formula 1 firsthand. Our competition winners didn't have much time to relax before they were suiting up in preparation for the ride of their lives.
Absolutely ecstatic, scared, frightened, nervous. I don't know what to expect. I'm just so excited. I'm just like, let's get on with it. It's just the shock and it is the adrenaline. You forget to breathe. It's just phenomenal. And going round for the second, third time, I think there's the pit lane and we're not going down it. Great.
It didn't scare you too much, did it?
Not at all.
No, good.
Definitely nervous. Not really worried. Might be worried when I start. Excited, definitely. You don't get a chance to do this every day. One person's already survived it, so it makes it feel easier. The first sensation is just... it's so different. It's nothing you've ever sensed before. Coming out of left field, it's really slippery, so there's lots and lots of power going in, lots of opposite lock going on. Ah, that was fun. And then you just come flying along the start straight, and before you know it, you're at the other end. I suspect I'm going to be a bore. I apologise to all my friends in advance, but oh, so cool.
Some ITV celebs were also at Silverstone for an adrenaline fix, producing some interesting reactions.
Terribly nervous, but I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it, but I'm nervous. I'll never get another chance like this in my life. So, you know, driven by one of the best drivers in the world. It's fantastic. My boy's here. I couldn't bottle out in front of my boy, could I? I just cannot believe the speed. And he comes round that corner and all of a sudden Martin's by you. So, I mean, 170 miles an hour, whatever it is, they're reaching down here. Incredible, absolutely incredible. I found the braking more unbelievable than the acceleration because you're going at such a speed into the corners and then you think it's never going to brake and then Martin, he just brakes and anyway. Oh, it's wonderful. I'm running the risk of repeating myself, but that was fantastic. I mean, honest to God, it was just absolutely mind-blowing.
Daddy, the memory when you went turning to the side.
Turning to the side, was that the best bit, was it?
Yeah.
Turning to the sides, I've been told to tell you, turning to the sides was the best bit. You excited for Daddy? That was great.
Good.
Great,
Good.
Thank you. I guess.
I just thought I've got to do it. I could never forgive myself for missing it.
Yeah, I'm nervous, yeah. Not nervous in a bad way, but just very excited.
I think I'm probably going to find it unbelievably frightening, but fun as well.
Well, I've seen the looks on their faces if they come off the competition winners, so I'm sure I'll be pretty much like that.
I have to confess, I've never even owned my own car.
When I got in and put the helmet on and that was it, there's no way I was getting out, I was extremely nervous.
You have to have sort of blind faith in the person who's driving, otherwise I'd never have got in.
The single most amazing thing I've ever done.
I feel very privileged actually to have done that. Oh, that's fantastic. I'm quite glad I'm getting out though.
Just want to do it again.
My eyes will be out on stalks and I might well vomit. Am I supposed to have it over my mouth?
Absolutely up to you.
It might stop the sick. The adrenaline is rising, and I love it. Feel that adrenaline.
Martin!
Yeah?
Can I just hold your hand a minute here? So
You're not a touch nervous, are you? It's going to be alright.
take me for the ride of my life, Martin!
Oh, that was fantastic. I love that spin, Martin. That spin. Give me that speed! Oh, wow, we're... Whoa! Martin! Whoa! That was great. Oh, it's a sensation. You can't articulate it. Oh, yes! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh. I loved that.
You
so
did, didn't
much.
you?
I loved it.
I've taken 20, 30 people and nobody's ever enjoyed it that much.
Oh.
Really?
Oh.
That's it from Maranello and the year 2000. Happy New Year, everyone. Will it be another Ferrari year? Well, who knows, but whatever, it's almost on us. So, here's to another classic, like this one.
It's a beautiful